Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. This is the practice report brought to you by Byers Auto right here at Letterman Row. A short week for Ohio State coming off that big win over Michigan State on Saturday. They've got the off date. This is Spencer Holbrook, this well-dressed gentleman over here, my colleague at Letterman Row. Spencer, so we talked to Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, and Greg Madison today. The players are getting a little bit of a short week. They're going to have a chance to get away on Thursday. But what did you learn about what the Buckeyes need to get done from these next couple days before they turn their attention to Northwestern?
Well, the biggest thing I took away was how big of a fan they are of Josh Myers. I mean, Josh Myers, Kevin Wilson just seemed to glow up when he talked about Josh Myers, and he just continued to say, he played well, he played well.
I think he said, really good, really good, really good.
And, it's a weird thing to take away, being the center of attention, being the center. But, I mean, when you look at this offensive line, it's really been dictated by Thayer Munford on the outside, whoever, the revolving door at right tackle, and then that interior is just dominating people right now. And I think that's one of the unsung heroes of this offense is J.K. Dobbins is getting a lot of credit. Justin Fields is taking a lot of hits, but it's because he's holding on to the ball a while.
Yeah.
Josh Myers and Wyatt Davis are mauling people.
Yeah, you look at the stats for Ohio State through 6 weeks, and you say, wow, that team's giving up a lot of sacks. And we've talked about this before. There's that fine line with Justin Fields believes that he can extend plays, and sometimes he gets himself in trouble. I think sometimes you take that over an interception. But you're absolutely right. The protection has been good enough for him to make plays in the passing game. The run blocking has been phenomenal, and J.K. Dobbins and Master Teague are both reaping the benefits of that. Then you add in the threat of Justin Fields running, and it's all sort of working together with this offense that I think is right now maybe the most balanced, most productive in the country.
Yeah, and Ryan Day's going to say what he says. He says some of the same things every week, but when you get to talk to Kevin Wilson, you get an understanding of where this offense is because, Day is now juggling offense, defense, play calling, everything. Kevin Wilson's focusing directly on the offense. When he was asked about wide receiver blocking even too, I mean, He just has so many good things to say about this offense, and you really can't find many things wrong to say about it except for maybe the first quarter. But I think they kind of looked past that because they knew how physical this game was and how big of a win it was, and they're taking this bye week in stride, I would say.
I think it's interesting too that Kevin Wilson singled out Garrett Wilson as somebody who was blocking well. KJ Hill on the touchdown run for J.K. Dobbins. So it's really been an all-around effort, and the fact that Garrett Wilson is getting that attention, I think, is an example. He is one of 4 or 5 guys right now that are really pushing for more playing time. You write about this in your stock watch every Monday, so some of these names are familiar, but, I mean, Josh Proctor is pushing for more action there.
I knew you were going to bring him up.
You have to start there, right? But
yeah.
Zach Harrison, Cameron Brown, that was an injury situation with Damon Arnett out, but, these guys seem to be getting more depth as the season goes along. That's not normally how it works.
Well, and your depth is supposed to develop when you play Miami, Ohio, right? It's not supposed to develop when you play Michigan State. But Zach Harrison gets a sack, a half sack, because they wanted Chase Young to get in on that party. And then Cam Brown comes in, and they challenged him a couple times. I think he had 1 catch against him. Yeah. Darryl Stewart, the leading receiver in the Big Ten. And Cam Brown looked almost like Damon Arnett, maybe not as good. But, I mean, you didn't really miss a beat on that defense when Cam Brown went in there. Josh Proctor. These guys are like you said, getting some depth, and we can't say enough about Baron Browning, though. I mean, these guys are just coming along, and like you said, and you can't build depth in the Big Ten when you're playing against Big Ten teams, but this team seems to be doing it. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, if you are, you're going to do it against Rutgers and Maryland and Indiana, and some of that was the case last month at Indiana. But what they did, I think, on Saturday night against Michigan State with some of the putting Zach Harrison out there in the Rushman package, and Greg Madison talked about him today, that he's fast enough that they can drop him into coverage if they want. These aren't the kinds of things that are normally said, even if you are a 5-star. By any defensive end, your true freshman year through 6 games, he's doing more, I believe. I have to look back and compare all the numbers and all the snap counts. Maybe I'll do that with Larry Johnson this week. But Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, Chase Young, when these guys were there on their first year in camp, so look at Tyreek Smith a year ago, they did not have this impact, and I'm trying to be careful with the hyperbole, but he is really, really coming into something special.
Yeah, Zach Harrison's been a revelation almost for this defense because while Tyler Friday's been down, Tyreek Smith's been down, those guys are really key parts of this defense. And when you get to have a freshman get those kind of reps in these meaningful situations, it's only going to help your team. And you're seeing it pay off now because all these guys are starting to get healthy. Well, look who's the new kid on the block's finally starting to get some playing time as well, which just makes it even more intriguing to see this defensive line continue to roll guys. And we don't even touch on the interior, but
go for it.
Those defensive ends make it, not to say those defensive tackles aren't talented, but those defensive ends make it so easy for those defensive tackles to get in there and wreak havoc in the pocket because Brian Lewerke, aside from that second quarter drive in which he missed the wide open receiver, he didn't have much time to throw. And when you can make a good quarterback who needs to stay in the pocket, when you can collapse the pocket on him, you're going to have a lot of success. And it didn't just come from Chase Young, and it didn't just come from Zach Harrison.
All right, it's a practice report brought to you by Byers Auto. So let's talk about practice. When you look at these next few days, Spencer, Ryan Day had to talk about this. There's the balancing act. Do you want to push it and continue that momentum? Do you need to take it back a little bit, pull the reins, and don't put Chase Young out there, Justin Fields banged up on Saturday night? How do you think, the way Day described it, they'll manage these next few days?
Well, usually when a team gets a bye week, it's right before a good opponent. And luckily they have Northwestern coming up, so they don't need to push it too hard this week. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they'll ramp it up next week. But this week, I think it is a time to rest, and it is a nice luxury to have when you're not getting ready to face Wisconsin off the bye week. So you don't have to keep that level of momentum going. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, you can kind of ease into the practice week and get some rest this week. And God knows they needed it because they looked banged up at the end of that game.
They did.
But yeah, they needed the rest. Now they're going to focus to Northwestern, and I think they can kind of ease their way into that Northwestern game. Nothing against Northwestern. Maybe it is a little against Northwestern, but
and that's fair to be. I mean, that team is struggling. Their offense is awful. I don't see how they can possibly protect against this defensive line that we're talking about. They've played pretty good defense. We watched them a couple weeks ago slow down Wisconsin a bit, so maybe that's the way that they'll look at this and that challenge that's coming for the Buckeyes. But right now, I mean, you'd have to think that the challenge is keeping focused on the next one right now, because what's going to happen with Wisconsin. Penn State is starting to roll. Michigan, those things are at the end of the year. So this is about the time of year where you have those tests to see if you can keep yourself going and locked in, because I hate to even say the words Iowa and Purdue, but if you get caught trapped ahead, if you don't maximize your bye week, those are the things that happen.
Yeah, and Northwestern isn't a team to overlook by any means, solely because it's on a Friday night, it's at home, the grass is going to be long. They do still have natural grass.
All right,
we talked about that.
Glad we got to the bottom of that.
We had talked about that on Tim's podcast. They do have natural grass, so they're going to come out fired up. You're going to take a punch from them, I assume, in the first quarter, maybe even through the first half.
Yep.
And if you're asleep and you don't punch back on that Friday night game, they're just going to keep punching. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be as easy of a game as everyone thinks it is, just because they are resting this week. And whether they like to say it or not, they're not pushing it as much as they could be, I'm sure, because they needed some rest. And so now you have to turn your attention to Northwestern after all the players get to go home for a couple days. Yeah. It's a weird spot to be in. And like you said, Iowa and Purdue can't happen to this team. And I don't see it happening, but,
And it's funny, too. I mean, obviously, this Ohio State team is different than the one that just won the Big Ten last year, and the opponent they played looks a lot different. But I just look over there. They're going to practice on this field. That says Big Ten champions, Ohio State 45, Northwestern 24. This program knows that they can get a test and that team can win games. So that should help keep them focused on what's coming. Again, it'll be a short week for Ohio State, so this will be a short version of the practice report brought to you by Byers Auto. He's Spencer Holbrook. I'm Austin Ward. We appreciate you joining us. We will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Letterman Row.
We got Letterman Live. We've got the practice report. We got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Letterman Row.